Hey there, it's author and attorney Kelly O'Connell. How you doing today? With Knockout Podcasts, and I had an idea that has been on my mind for a long time, and we do have, by the way, another hurricane or storm coming up in Texas, and I have a friend who just drove down there right into the middle of it, so kind of interesting. And I don't know if you've noticed, there are a lot of volcanoes that are going off right now across the world. Now, I don't know if it's a record. I think there are 3 or 4 in Alaska right now and around on a lot of other places, but I'll have to do some research for you to find out if it's out of the ordinary. But anyway, all right, so here's my question. My main question, my only question on this Afghanistan thing, and they were doing hearings today. My only question is, was Joe Biden forced to abandon Americans? To me, that's the only question that really matters. Because if Joe Biden just decided to leave Americans there because he could, which seems to me like the answer, then he's not fit to be the president. He's not fit to be out in public. Now, here's another question. Is Joe Biden competent? Because that's the only excuse he could possibly have, that he was incompetent and therefore didn't really realize what he was doing. He was not in charge of his faculties because he's lost his mind one way or the other. That's an excuse, but it means he immediately has to go and leave. And the people that were behind him or helping him do this are really the ones that are responsible. They have to be punished. And if he is competent, it just tells you what a bad person he is, and the people that he's assembled to do the job. Anthony Blinken, Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, the guy that's the head of the military, Austin, or the head of the Secretary of Defense, and then the other guy, I can't even remember his name, head of the military. All terrible, terrible people, because they agreed to be part of this abandonment of Americans and allies and weapons. And now they're showing pictures or videos of the Taliban getting women or girls in the street and beating them. And the rule under the Sharia is that there's a couple of rules. You're not supposed to beat a woman with a stick that's larger in thickness than your thumb. But if you think about it, that includes a lot of things, and that would really be for the wife. Shouldn't be beat with anything larger than that. Now, if a woman commits an act that is considered to be a grave violation of the Sharia, then she can be whipped, given lashes, or she could be given lapidation, which is stoning. And the stone for the stoning shouldn't be so small as to not inflict an injury. On the other hand, it shouldn't be too big. It should fit nicely into the palm of your hand. And then they would get typically a crowd of the locals together, and sometimes they would blindfold the woman, sometimes they would bury her so she couldn't escape, and then they would throw stones until she stopped moving. So this idea that the Taliban are coming to have a new updated leadership and a more friendly, more happy Sharia is impossible. It's absurd, because it's the law they believe from God. So, what do you think? Is Joe Biden competent? Now, how would you tell? He does a lot of things that competent people do. He answers, he talks, he walks. He can be asked a question and can answer to some limited amount. He does a lot of things that incompetent people do. He seems to wander off quite easily. gets off the track. He says stuff that the average person, a person who is competent, wouldn't say, which was, I'm not supposed to answer any questions, or I'm not supposed to talk about this, or I'm supposed to ask questions of these certain people. They told me. He never says who they are. But if you can imagine, if somebody is mentally beat down, then they would possibly respond to this type of thing by saying that this individual, those people told me what to do. So I think we need to have an impeachment or a 25th Amendment. Now, the problem with that is there doesn't seem to be any trust in Kamala, and you can just see why she doesn't seem to be able to handle herself. She runs from trouble. And I mean, leadership, the job of a leader is to go to the front of the line or go to the people when there is a crisis and lead the people through the crisis. So today, pardon me, when Biden or Blinken was talking, he was confronted by a couple of different people, and it is kind of an interesting thing because you've got Joe Biden, you've got Blinken, you've got other people in the government. Oh, the Psaki, isn't sake supposed to be Japanese wine? She's a whiner, all right. But so all of these people are trying to put on a face that what happened was acceptable, and they get angry, they get testy, they get irritated when they're called out on this stuff, and the issue is there's no possible justification of what they did. So, it's just kind of one of these mysterious things that there's not ever going to be an answer that makes people happy, because you don't leave your own people before you take out the military, and that's all there is to it. So there's many people in the administration that are that have done wrong. They have done grave crimes. They're criminals. There's a lot of criminals in Joe Biden's government because these people think as long as they're not Trump, they can do anything they want, which is very sad. Now, what are these people doing to protect us? My third question here is, for the next 3 years, how are we going to get protected from the insane King Lear-esque idiocy of madman Joe Biden? And I'm reminded of Yassarian's statement in Catch-22, and he's in the military. He's a fighter or a bomber pilot. They keep sending him out. He keeps coming back from missions. And every time he comes back, they increase the number of missions you have to have before you can go home. And he says the enemy is anybody who's going to get you killed, no matter which side he's on. And don't forget that, because the longer you remember it, the longer you might live. So, anyway, now on to the... I want to ask you, though, by the way, what can we do? What can we do to protect ourselves from Joe Biden? And one of the things we're doing is trying to throw out this moron Newsom in California, this terrible person. But let me bring to you some of my most delicious weird news. All right, in no particular order. Man arrested for allegedly exposing himself multiple times at toll booths, troopers say. Now, I'm looking at a picture of this guy. Have you noticed a lot of times people who get involved, especially in some sort of salacious or sexual crime, and they look average, or maybe even they look attractive, like a lot of these ladies that have affairs with kids, the teachers, they have affairs, and the women a lot of times are very attractive and not unusually or often are married. You're thinking, does lady really have to have had sex with a 15-year-old to be happy in her life? So the guy here, he's not anybody's homecoming king, but not a male model. But 41-year-old man arrested on Saturday, and he was, and this is in Florida, of course, arrested on Saturday for allegedly exposing himself multiple times to toll booth workers, according to the Florida Highway Patrol. Troopers took into custody Mark Anthony Filiaw, who faces multiple charges of indecent exposure. He was booked into the Osceola County Jail. Did he expect to get a free pass? All right. Another story. Defendant shot by officer during courthouse struggle. And this guy was in here. And here's another one that doesn't make any sense. A man on trial was shot Thursday, and this is in North Carolina, Roxborough, trying to grab a bailiff's gun in the Person County Courthouse. Christopher Thomas Vaughn, 35 of Oxford, became enraged after he was convicted of a misdemeanor. Listen to this, a misdemeanor false imprisonment charge, and started yelling and threw a chair. And he attempted to attack people inside the courtroom who had maybe been witnesses against him or the family against him. Two officers worked to subdue Vaughn, but during the struggle, he got a hold of the bailiff's gun. At that point, an officer shot Vaughn, and the officer suffered a broken hand in the incident, and the bailiff suffered a gash on his head and scratches on his neck. And one person who lived near the courthouse, I didn't expect something like this to happen in Roxborough, but then again, with all the craziness that's been happening lately, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So anyway, you try to kill somebody over a misdemeanor? All right, here's another one, truly weird. Rapper Dan Sur, who's Mexican, has gold chains surgically attached to his head instead of hair. And he's already got a grill on his teeth. And so, although I'm looking at his top teeth right now, they don't appear to have anything on them. And so he said he wanted to do something different to stand out from the crowd. So instead of choosing to dye his hair, he had his jewelry hooked into his skin in place of his usual hair. And he now says that he has golden hair, so it's just gold chains hanging off his head, and some of them have diamonds in it. And he said in one video, the truth is that I wanted to do something different because I see everyone dyes their hair. Now, hopefully everybody copies me. I have it as a hook that is implanted in my head, and that hook has hooks, and they are all hooked in my skull. This is my hair, my golden hair. So anyway, this was a doctor heard about this, and he wanted to let people know that it's very dangerous to hook stuff onto your skull. But then again, I assume that is common knowledge. All right, here's the last one. Naked woman, where? Florida, drives golf cart into Florida standoff scene with armed suspects. So, excuse me. Imagine this. You're a cop. You're working. You get called into a standoff, and somebody's got a gun. And so you're there for hours trying to talk this guy out of harming himself or somebody else. And, you're there sweating and you're worried stiff. All of a sudden, a golf cart comes out of nowhere and drives right through the scene. Jessica Smith of Boston allegedly ignored officers' demand that she leave the area. She refused to get out of the cart when officers came up to her. And she had a distinct odor of alcoholic beverage coming from her person, and she was completely nude. And this is in Dunedin. Several Pinellas County Sheriff's Office vehicles parked around the scene. And Smith allegedly drove past the law enforcement vehicles into the area where the authorities were confronting an armed 18-year-old suspect in what turned out to be a 6-hour standoff. She ignored demands to leave, and then they finally pulled her out of the cart and handcuffed her. An investigator wrote the defendant's actions and inability to follow directions put multiple deputies at risk for getting shot. So Abbott, and then the guy who did the standoff, Miles Abbott, fired a gun at some people, climbed onto her roof. He was up on the roof for hours. And so, anyway, very strange. All right, thanks for tuning in. A little bit of a shorter show today, but I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Have a great one. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe. Kelly O'Connell, podcast known as Knockout Radio Chat.